I think I've made it extremely apparent that I have an unquenchable thirst for Radiant both in-game and in real life. However, I'm finally reaching a point where I need to ask myself, am I really giving my all? Do I genuinely believe I'm doing everything possible to reach my dreams and make them a reality? If it's your first time checking out the Zasko II channel, every Wednesday I post a video documenting my journey towards mental, physical, emotional, and financial mastery. All of which we benchmark on the battlefield of Valorant. This week, things get a little bit out of hand and I think it makes for a good video, so I hope you enjoy. In true Zasko II fashion, this week starts off with some kind of dramatic correction. Last week we did end up getting sick, and despite now feeling better, it definitely destroyed my sleep schedule. So of course, starting off the week, the dramatic correction was to force myself to wake up at 5 AM regardless of the fact that it meant I'll only be getting 5 hours of sleep. Despite 5 hours of sleep being suboptimal for learning, it has to be done in order to reset the sleep schedule and reinstate the 5 AM wake-ups. One thing that did surprise me though was that I was not only able to get myself to the gym, but I was also able to complete a legendary workout. In case you haven't watched the previous video, on screen you'll see our growth measurement system, the system we used last week in order to automate both our Valorant and in real life progression. So of course, since we completed 8 exercises total, we're awarded 4 points, which is very nice. Now coming into this week, one of the main things I needed to fix was my dopamine receptors. Last week's sickness dropped my willpower so low that I really struggled to not overstimulate myself. I ended the week with 137 YouTube videos clicked, and that is the highest we've seen in a very long time. If we want to perform at our best, we need a clear mind, so driving in silence, avoiding the urge to check my phone, and just trying to meditate my way through the day is how we're going to achieve it. But with that clarity came a brand new idea. As of right now, when I finish work, I make a burger cheese straight away. After that, it usually takes me about 45 minutes to digest it enough to really feel focused while I'm gaming. However, the problem arises when I have 2 in a single day. By the time I get home at 1 o'clock and I'm ready to play again at 2:15, I only get like 90 minutes of grinding done before I need to make another burger cheese and repeat the cycle. It's just not enough time after work. We've got massive goals that simply can't be achieved in a matter of hours. So the solution that I thought of, I'm going to be going down to just 1 meal per day while still getting all the food that I need. This is completely experimental and something that I'm going to try for 5 to 6 days before evaluating how it goes, but there is a large community of people that do it. It's called OMAD. From my research, it seems like something that you build up to, you let your body adapt over time, and then you slowly eat more and more food, but I just decided to full send it. The idea was to double the fat intake and drop the protein by about 25% because I'm already getting about 210 grams of protein. It's probably overkill. Going from 1 kilogram of mince down to 750 grams allows me to get to that 150 grams of protein mark. However, my first mistake was habitually just eating 75 grams of butter. Since we're cooking on the barbecue at the moment and losing the fat from the mince itself, between the cheese and the butter, we're only getting about 88 grams of fat, making our protein to fat ratio 2 to 1. The minimum should be 1 to 1. I should be getting 150 grams of fat if I'm eating 150 grams of protein. To anyone on a normal diet, that sounds insane, but keep in mind I'm on a fat-adapted carnivore diet. To say it was a challenge to get through this monstrosity would definitely be an understatement, but of course I did, and I try my best to get through the rest of the tasks for the day. I started off by just maintaining the stretches we developed last week, and then getting stuck into our focused training. Because I'm sleep deprived though, I wanted to protect my RR and improvement by avoiding competitive Valorant. I definitely hate the feeling of sleep deprivation. My willpower is just not there. Like, I'm struggling so hard to get through anything. Instead of focusing on active recovery, I chose the easy way out, hopping on an alt account and dropping a 30 bomb in a plat lobby. Something I felt super regretful about afterwards because I skipped my physical warm-up, ramp warm-up and deathmatch, and it was just time wasted. Time that I just simply don't have. I feel ashamed skipping the growth measurement system, so I'm going to try my best to go back over everything, honestly, see if I can recover. From there, I did try to backpedal by shooting for a second stretching point, completing my ramp warm-up and setting up the next morning for success, but overall it was a very low growth start to the week. The one thing that we can give ourselves credit for though is getting to sleep at 8 o'clock with a 60-minute wind down. That means no technology, no stimulation, no stress, just pure relaxation. So of course, considering we get an amazing sleep, it's straight back to the gym for our pull day. Usually my pull day only consists of a maximum of 4 exercises, however I was craving another legendary workout. I ended up adding in some brand new exercises such as hammer curls, as well as a wide grip seated row, just simply for the sake of reaching that 8 exercise benchmark. Last week, we did put a massive focus on time under tension, the idea that we'll do 3-second eccentric movements followed by a 1-second explosive lift. It felt like it absolutely shredded my muscles last week, and the chest day that we did it on was super painful, so it's something I'm continuing to do moving forwards. After wrapping up our gym session, it's another silent drive to work, clearing our mind and preparing ourselves mentally to not only surrender our time to the shift, but also our energy. This is something I find extremely difficult to do because deep down, all I want to do is make videos and grind. I spend my break searching for some sunlight, and I was able to snag about 15 minutes just through the clouds, which is a blessing and always helps to fight the sunlight deprivation. But on my way home, I dropped into the shops to grab some more mince, cheese, and butter. Because I'm now only eating 1 meal per day, after arriving home, instead of cooking my burger cheese, I get straight into the grind. From an efficiency standpoint, this did feel good. But because I wasn't used to this diet, I was super hungry. My focus didn't feel amazing, and I didn't feel as clear-minded as I thought I would. I washed my hands in soapy water just to remove any dead skin that may cause unwanted friction on the mousepad. Moving on to my ramp warm-up, the scores were a bit better than yesterday, however they were not nearly as close to those that we were achieving previously. I was really struggling to focus and perform to our usual standard, and I didn't feel amazing going into our first deathmatch. Regardless, I still decided to push through and play 2 competitive games. We ended up getting bind, and honestly, you can actually see the brain fog that I was feeling as I was playing. My mechanics were super sloppy, and it was as if I'd forgotten half the callouts on the map. Hookah. Picking. One was hookah. Throughout the game, I was able to make a few plays here and there, however nothing seemed to be satisfying, and I just really wasn't enjoying myself. Despite the valiant effort, giving it my all, this game did end up being a match MVP loss. For the sake of science, I queue into our next game and I end up getting bind once again. This game was a bit of a weird one because I felt like I was playing better as I was now more warmed up. However, I was hungrier than ever, so my brain fog was also increasing. Going into the defense half of this game, we were down 9-3. A part of me wanted the game to end really soon so I could go and eat. However, this happened. Kind of vulnerable. She's vulnerable. We actually got our first ever ace on the channel. I don't think I've gotten another ace before. From there, we started to build a bit of momentum and the 9-3 curse was looking more promising than ever. Yep, Shaz, so short. Despite bringing the scores all the way back to 11-12, we do walk away with another MVP loss. Okay, I'm definitely ready for food now. I am so ridiculously hungry and brain fogged, so I pushed it too hard. I decided to cop the losses and move on for the sake of science. I was so excited to finally get some food into me after our second consecutive 24-hour fast of the week. However, once again I make the exact same mistake of only eating half the required butter. At this point, it's only a matter of time before my body runs out of fat and I either start burning muscle or I just reach a point of fatigue that I've never experienced before. Another thing I'd like to bring to your attention is my habits surrounding salt. I use Celtic sea salt, which is super healthy, however I do think that I may be going a bit too hard. I'll revisit this idea later, but it's a bit of extra foreshadowing for you guys. Keep the video nice and dramatic the way we like it. Unfortunately, I went to go for a flip and I ended up violating the burger cheese. In some countries, this is actually a very severe crime, but thankfully here in Melbourne, if you're a first-time offender, you can pretty much get away with anything. Of course, I try my best to hide the evidence with 10 slices of Gouda cheese. Something I wanted to try was to close the lid after I put the cheese on, hoping for something cool to happen. And did something cool happen? Nah, I'll try again once I get a cast iron or something to catch the butter and cheese. But anyways, after getting through the entire meal, once again for the sake of science and experimentation, I cue another competitive game. What did this science experiment teach us? Well, usually 45 minutes is plenty of time after eating a burger cheese to refocus and perform well. But today we learned that eating this much food increases the level of post-meal brain fog, and that digestion period must simply be longer. This actually ends up being counterintuitive to the reason we're going OMAD in the first place. We want more time to grind. But maybe there's more to the problem. Maybe it's my body begging me for more fat. All I know is that as of right now, I've got no idea that my fat intake is even a problem. To finish off the night, we'll be developing our aim by doing some precise tracking scenarios. I do them on 2.5 my sensitivity so that all my flaws really stand out and I'm able to develop the skill much faster. After that, I hop onto the Voltaic benchmarks and try and see how much further my aim has progressed. By the end of the session, I was able to walk away with a few brand new immortal scores, and I was able to increase our benchmarks by an additional 5 points. Hey, that's more than the last couple months. After completing a half-an-hour aim training session, I shut down right in time to score another 60-minute wind down. I've been using candlelight and it's definitely had its impact. Even my showers feel so much more relaxing, and in combination with the hot water, I have no troubles falling asleep on time. Upon waking, I desperately felt the need for a rest day. Instead of going to the gym, I use my sad lamp as soon as I wake up. While getting my daily intake of light, I listen to an Andrew Huberman podcast about learning. I get through about 40 minutes of it before getting stuck into a learning session of my own. Today, we'll be leveling up our movement. Let me explain. Here's what it looks like when an enemy sees you, panics, and sprays while crouching. It looks like when the enemy is counter-strafing left and right. Suddenly, it becomes a lot more difficult for me to hit the target. However, the final level of movement is to combine both of them into one, aka the Primmie Movement. It's too good. If you've ever watched Primmie play, it's kind of like watching Dance Dance Revolution. And basically, I just want to completely replicate it. I decided to give it a shot and just see what it would look like, and it was definitely a rough beginning. The first thing I did was isolate the movement into different pieces. Firstly, the timing of the crouch, then I started to do the crouches in the right direction, and then making my way to the left direction. However, when I got to the left direction, I noticed something that was definitely holding me back.
Oh, okay, that's the problem.
I was struggling to individualize my index finger and ring finger. They were kind of moving together, making it a super awkward movement to perform.
Nice. Let's go.
For now, I just keep practicing through the uncomfortability and hope that it will go away. However, I do work on that problem a little later. I get through about half an hour worth of practice just trying to master the movement, but as it gets closer to 7 o'clock, I've got to head off to work. Today was only a 6-hour shift, but by the time I hit the 3rd hour of the day, and mind you I've taken a rest day, I was exhausted and completely at my limit.
It just clicked in my head. I just figured it out.
Once it finally clicked, I carved up 150 grams of butter, what I'm meant to have. While the burger cheese was cooking up, I also got to solving the Primmie Movement finger problem. But the problem is that when I push my pinky down like so rapidly, this is coming with it. And this is a problem that guitar players have, and I've found some solutions to it, so I'm going to run you guys through that in a second. Once again, I'm just going to show you how much salt I have been putting on my meat. I've always seen people speak so highly about getting an adequate amount of salt to make sure that you're not dehydrated. However, I think confusion arises when the symptoms of too much salt and too little salt seem so similar, and it just seems so hard to differentiate the two. Whenever I explain that I feel dehydrated and that I constantly have to wake up to pee at night, I'm always met with not enough salt. Same thing with the fatigue that I was feeling, it was just simply categorized as no electrolytes. Anyways, that's a problem for next week. So in order to individualize the fingers that I was struggling to separate, it was just as simple as smashing out a whole bunch of stretches. While my burger cheese cooked, I sat in the sun, feet in the grass, and hands stretching for a good 10 minutes.
I'm already at my limit. There's still more to go.
By the time I finished the double burger cheese, our Primmie movement was looking quite nice. Not perfect, but much better. Now, just a quick update on the Zasko II Fund. In case you're new, this is something we started last week where all my YouTube income from both Ko-Fi supporters as well as ad revenue goes towards one pool of money. Of course, the best part is that anyone that does support the channel gets to brainstorm and vote on what the money is going to be spent on. At the moment, we've got 11 supporters, totaling 104 USD. Last week, I finally hit the required watch hours to get monetized. However, YouTube is still reviewing my channel and this might take a little bit. So that means for now, 100% of the income is made up of Ko-Fi supporters, and if you do want to be a part of that, there's a link at the top of the description. As of right now, you'll gain access to the Zasko II Discord, spreadsheet, growth measurement system, as well as getting to watch all the full VODs if you're interested in that. Don't feel any pressure to contribute. I love you all anyways, and I'll continue to make videos every single Wednesday. Since we do still have a bit of time left in the day, I decided to get stuck into our focus, physical, and ramp warm-ups. Now that we've added an additional 75 grams of butter to the meal that was already extremely difficult to get through in the first place, it felt horrible playing after eating. But it's already 3 o'clock, I've got 3 hours in the day, and somehow I'm meant to hit Radiant. I don't know when else I'm meant to grind. That's the whole point that I'm trying to work around here. But despite feeling really groggy and yuck, I definitely felt like I had more energy in me. That's 100% sure. My performance in the deathmatch was definitely accelerated by that, as well as the brand new Primmie Movement that we've learned. Felt like I was dodging bullets in real time. It feels amazing, better than we first learned how to dead zone. Now, performing in deathmatch is one thing, but performing in our competitive games is a completely different ball game. Going into our first competitive game, I was feeling alright, but at the same time, the grogginess was just on my mind. And the thing with Valorant is the second something else is on your mind, pulling you away from the game, you just can't perform at your peak. And unfortunately in our case, it ended up being an 8-16 loss. Terrible. I just cannot focus after eating that much food. I just cannot. It's like my day's over after I eat, but it's not started until I eat, just to work. I decided to play a deathmatch, giving myself a bit of time to digest the food and try and clear my mind a bit, get in that flow state. And look, I feel like it helped, but I don't know. Anyways, our next competitive game brings us to Lotus. I was feeling a bit better and starting to mechanically function again, finally enabling us to score an 8-4 half. But of course, as we know, the world of solo queue is a beautiful mess, and my team thought we were playing Overwatch or something. I gave my full focus to the game, but the amount of rounds that were thrown was just super disheartening. And though one noticeable difference in this game was in fact my actual game sense and ability to time good repositions was definitely getting way better. Whenever reasonable, I was exploring big wraps, flanks, and just different unique plays. Of course, it wasn't enough to win the game, and we do end up walking away with an MVP loss. However, the next game I was definitely starting to focus a bit better. My plays were flowing and I was holding a really good pace throughout the game. And in combination with a really good team, we took a super easy win and it was on to the next game. Unfortunately though, I ended up messing up my recording, only recording my webcam and not getting the game itself, but the game was on bind and I ended up playing Raze for the first time ever. We ended up actually getting a super high tracker rating game, of course still being a loss. But for my first time playing Raze, I was so happy with the performance and it's something I'll do moving forward. But anyways, from there it was on to stretching and I just smash out my maintenance routine as well as do 2 minutes of chest and 2 minutes of lats before smashing out a deathmatch and working on my mechanics a bit. I did want to keep working on clearing my mind, so I did a 10-minute meditation session, and after a really good sleep, I get myself to the gym in the morning. I decided to go for a hybrid day where I do 2 leg exercises and 6 chest exercises, just making up for the fact that I skipped the previous day to take a rest. It was a whole lot easier now that we've actually got some fat in us to fuel the workout. After successfully completing that, it was off to work for our final shift of the week. Considering we're finally getting some fat in us now, the shift was a lot better than yesterday.
Energy levels are much better today. Much better today. But I'm tired as per normal. 8-hour shift done. 8-hour shift done.
I got through the day as I normally would, and then came home to make what would be our last double burger cheese. With the little time I had left in the day, I was able to get in a competitive game, and lucky for us it was on one of our best maps. But this time I gave it a fair bit of time between eating and playing our comp, just making sure I was fueled and ready to go and I wasn't still digesting. It definitely had its effect, but once again, the fact that I'm only playing one competitive game and not getting in any other practice just isn't gonna work. It's not aligning with our goals.
In the smoke. Oh, heaven.
Two more.
Ulters.
This game was extremely close right through to the end, making it super fun. However, when it got to overtime, we just simply couldn't perform well enough to secure the win. It's so hard to get off after a loss like that. Like, I just feel so frustrated, pissed off. I want to get my rank back. I want to chase that elo. But it's 7 o'clock now, so 1 hour wind down, get the 3-pointer, you know? It's just so frustrating. Oh well. But do not worry, ladies and gentlemen, as we have finally arrived to Sunday, our final day of the week and our 1 day off of work where we can absolutely grind and push ourselves to new heights. Contrary to our previous ability to surpass the fear of death and push ourselves to new limits, unfortunately, this week I actually did fear death. I did not want to fatigue myself. I feared the fatigue. After how little growth I felt like I'd made this week so far, simply because of fatigue, I feared it. I definitely feared it. For that reason, I only end up doing 1 back exercise and 1 arm exercise before going straight home and getting stuck into my training. I decided my first focus would be crosshair placement and pre-aims. Specifically when I'm pushing onto sight, I needed to learn which order we're going to be peeking what angles. I started off with bind and got my entries down on that, and then I ended up making my way to icebox. However, once I got to icebox, the focus transitioned from crosshair placement to watching us pass entry onto sight and just trying to replicate how he was doing it. Watching pro VODs is probably the 20% of the work that yields the 80% of the results, the Paletto, whatever that thing is. After icebox, it was abyss, and from there it was getting stuck into some stretches for the day. Once again, I'm not committing too much time into them, but I do get through the 5 muscles that I'm currently stretching. I decided that my second training session would be 4 death matches, focusing specifically on crosshair placement and slowing down. Something I thought about last night was that if I had to pick an aiming style to master, I would choose the Alexander smooth, effortless, low tension approach to aiming over a more flicky player like Kang, just speed, explosivity all the time. I know that this is something to train in the aim trainers, however when I'm in game, making sure that I am cool, calm and collected and taking my time with my shots is very important when it comes to pulling off this desired style. I take a break to complete 20 minutes of red light therapy while listening to some more Andrew Huberman, and then in order to increase my learning speed, I take a 15-minute breathwork session focusing on slowing down. The day was unfolding really nice so far, so I get stuck into our highly optimal warm-up. First of all, our focused training, then our physical warm-up, ramp warm-up, and lastly, our deathmatch. Now this deathmatch does differ from the other ones because the goal is to simply get ourselves into that meditative flow state. I'm not looking to develop any skills before playing because when I go into the game, I'm more likely to be focusing on those specific points, and that would make the rest of my gameplay suffer as it pulls me out of that flow state. Our first competitive game of the day has taken us to Ascent. Reflecting on my performance, I'm starting to see some inconsistency in my raw aim. Because I've been struggling to find the time to train myself properly, there seems to be many cases where my raw aim just isn't up to scratch. This could not only be my physical skills, but it could also be me letting the stress of the game slowly take over and increase my tension. I find that the second half of the game, my aim is always a little bit worse, and it could just be due to that stress. Another potential option is a lack of focus. Maybe I'm going into my game super focused, but that focus slowly fades as I become less and less present in the moment, once again due to the stress and the chaos of the game. I think that my gameplay footage as well as headshot percentage can be a little bit deceiving when it comes to where my aim is actually at. I think that I'm super disciplined when it comes to clicking on the head, and that's why I'm able to do that so often. But if I don't click the head, I don't click anything. Basically, when you see me kill people, it looks like I've got good aim because I'm only ever hitting the head and my stats look good because of it. However, I think there's so many kills that are still being left on the table if I had better aim. I believe I could take that discipline and accuracy and increase it to the point where I'm consistently dropping 30 kills every game and I'm consistently taking every single opportunity. For example, have a look at my target switching. I just can't simply switch from the Phoenix to the Sage, especially when I'm under the pressure of another defeat. Our next game on Abyss though actually felt close to a flawless game. I had a really great team behind me. I was so focused and I was so locked into the game, and I just felt like I was playing at my max potential for the moment. I didn't feel like I was hungry, and I didn't feel like I was overfed. Of course, we're still in the early portions of the day, but at least this peak time is no longer going towards simply just work, and instead it's going towards the grind a bit.
Oh, 120 dinking.
I'm quitting OMAD. Not feeling the OMAD. OMAD's done. I'm going to make a burger cheese. That marks the end of our science experiment, unfortunately. I really did want it to work, and I was really hoping for some better results. However, the 24-hour fast just wasn't working for me at the moment, and the amount of food that I was eating felt like it was wiping out my entire day. I can see this diet working extremely well if I needed to cut down on weight. Like, that would be so good for that. However, I need to bulk because I need to eat heaps. It just wasn't working too well. And once again, I explained that the reason I wanted to do it was to save time so that I could grind more, but it actually ended up being counterintuitive because it was taking me longer to eat my meals and it was taking away more time where I was less focused.
145 jet.
Let's calm aim this. Now, it would be amazing if I could get the hype music going and turn around and say, once we went back to the old diet, everything was insane. Oh my good. But nah, I played a pretty average game and I don't know, it wasn't the best.
One heaven. Top is backside.
But guys, the next game was insane. I'm putting on the hype music, okay? Let's just call the last game a digestion game, okay? Maybe I played too soon, because this game was beautiful. I'm not joking when I say that this was one of multiple 4K rounds. You know what? In fact, I actually get one the next round.
Over there.
Those two extremely questionable 4Ks led to the confidence to ooze, in combination with the sheer focus of a functioning carnivore diet. It was unstoppable. It was genuinely unstoppable. Despite the performance, this game was still extremely close. But that did not slow me down. I was absolutely running through the enemy team on attack.
Side.
Yo.
This round ended up being my third 4K, and the very next round, not only were we on for another, we were put in a scenario where there's one player left and we are on for our second ever ace. The only question now is, can we pull it off? Can we achieve our second ever ace and bring the scores back to 10 to 11? Is the OG burger cheese once again solidifying itself as the reigning champion of fat adapted meals? Seriously deserve to be Diamond 2. Is that what's going on? Alright guys, look, I'm not gonna lie to you. Alright, as we know, it's 100% transparency, but the situation is starting to get dire. I think it's time to ask ourselves, how badly do we want to succeed? How badly do we actually want to show the world that you can reach Radiant with a balanced and healthy life? I don't know what's worse, a 25% win rate, or the fact that our benchmarks have sat at 1271 for an entire month, and we've only just now increased it by a mere 5 points. We still haven't even surpassed the body weight that we had coming into this series. 25 centimeter biceps, 31.5 centimeter calves. How many leg days do you reckon I've skipped throughout this entire series? Despite how accountable I think I am, my judgment is biased. I'm very quick to blame my lack of progression straight to a lack of time. Well, it turns out my perspective on how much time is going where is just simply skewed. I have 10 hours and 44 minutes on YouTube in the last 7 days. Until this addiction is squashed, there is no progression. It's just as simple as that. Alright, so what am I taking from this week? Number 1 is my diet needs to be taken more seriously. I've introduced fish in the form of mackerel every single day in order to get our omega-3s covered. I've introduced iodine supplements as I probably haven't had any iodine at least 6 months. I've got a cast iron pan going so that I can collect all the fat and have a fattier meal, and I need to just spend an entire week absolutely crushing the YouTube addiction. This week was the last 25-hour week. Moving forwards, I'm only working 20 hours. That's an additional 5 hours of my time, plus hopefully we get back an additional 10 hours from my YouTube addiction. What's an additional 15 hours of grind gonna look like in the form of a Zasko II YouTube video? I don't know. You're gonna have to check in next week and see how we do. This week has been a crazy one, but not a bad one, because we've really been able to identify some things that are holding us back, and hopefully we're able to finally break through these barriers that are just really holding us back from progressing. Being one game off Diamond 2 was definitely a reality check that just kind of made me think, like, am I even trying hard enough? And the answer is no. I could be doing more, and I'm gonna do more. Anyways, I love you all. I appreciate all the Ko-Fi supporters. I appreciate all the viewers in general. Goodbye.